Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. I woke up this morning, Tuesday, January 2nd, really the first business day of the year. Now, last week, I think it was on December 29th, I went to the VA and had my blood drawn because I got a physical coming up next week on the 11th. The good news about the VA is that I can access all of my medical records, including lab and imaging results, online. As soon as my doctor sees them, approves them, and I honestly didn't expect them to be there this morning. Evidently, she must have worked yesterday. But there they were. Gotta admit, I was a little nervous. And before I start talking about them, got them right here, I want to make something very, very clear. To the normal medical community, what I have here, by all rights, I should be dead. I should have had a heart attack years and years ago. But somehow, not only am I not dead, but I'm in the best shape of my life. And it's the irony of that that makes this more and more puzzling, because it's not just me, it's a ton of other people. But yet, looking at some of the numbers on this piece of paper would cause great alarm in most members of the medical community these days. So I want to make clear, and it's important to me that you understand this point, because it's very, very important that you don't just blindly do what I do without doing the research yourself. Because let's face it, whenever we do anything that goes against the conventional medical wisdom, we're making a bet. 17 months ago, I decided to bet my life on it. But I didn't make that decision lightly. I was prepared. I think it was a good decision. More and more of the evidence that we're seeing these days supports the fact that it was a good decision. But don't just do what I say or what I talk about without analyzing your own situations. I know this is hard, but so many of you have medical problems, which I may not have had when I started. So I'm an N of 1. I'm an experiment on myself, because that for me is the final proof of what works and what doesn't work. And yet there may still be some lingering doubts. Those doubts diminish every day. There's a lot of other numbers besides just cholesterol. Cholesterol has been the focus of our medical community for so many years that it's become commonplace. And it's the one thing that most doctors rely on as an indicator of your overall health, which couldn't be further from the truth. I'm going to save the discussion about my cholesterol numbers till the end and go over all the other things that I think are important. I think it's important because taking cholesterol out of context in relation to so many of the other test results is foolish. I think we're too complicated for that. So I'm going to start and talk about these things. I'm not going to read every one of these numbers. There's a lot of them. But I am going to talk about the ones that I think are important. And we'll start with blood counts. My white blood count is 5.2. The normal range, 4.2 to 10.3. That means my white blood count is low. My red blood count, 4.77, is in the mid-range of normal. My hemoglobin at 14 is smack in the middle of the normal range. My hematocrit, which is 43.1, is also smack in the middle of the normal range. I won't go into things like mean corpuscular volume and all that stuff. My platelet count is 202, which is fine. This is all about platelet volume, lymphocytes, monocytes, immunoglobulin, globulin 0.2 should be 0 to 0.6. So those things show me that what people call a complete blood count. My blood count numbers are right where they should be. How much this actually has to do with diet, I don't know. Certainly not as much as lipid profiles, but my numbers do indicate that, according to my blood work, I'm in great health. 76 and a half years old. Now, talking about things that we're more familiar with, the indicators of sugar and diabetes and things, my HbA1c is 5.0, which is great. That means I'm pretty far from being a diabetic. But I've never been a diabetic because I've tried to low carb all my life, even though I yo-yoed all the time. But my HbA1c was 5.0. Last year it was 4.9. I expected it to be even higher than that this year because of the fact that we've been talking about the fact that our blood cells, when we're healthier, live longer, which means they're immersed in blood sugar for a longer period of time, and they're going to have more of that glom onto them because HbA1c is an average blood sugar level. Anything below 5.7 is normal. 5.0 is terrific. And my glucose, my fasting glucose was 88, which is perfect. Perfect. I'm very happy. Why it would be any higher than that, since I'm not eating any sugar, would have to indicate that I'm mainly getting too much protein and maybe a little too much gluconeogenesis, which is how our body synthesizes glucose for its glucose needs if you're not eating any. Last year, my fasting glucose was in the 90s. This year it's down to 88, which I think is really, really good. My PSA, my prostate-specific antigen, is 1.48 on a scale of 0 to 4. That means I likely don't have any prostate cancer or issues, and I'm not seeing any symptoms of prostate problems. This one I love. My vitamin B12, in a scale of 213 to 816, is 734. I got a lot of vitamin B12. And one thing I noticed is she didn't order a vitamin D3. So when I have my physical next week, I'm going to ask her if she won't order one for me. And she generally orders what I ask for. So there may be some other tests I'll have her order. And I'll decide on those before I go to my physical. Here's one that ought to shock any of you young men. And when I say young men, I mean men younger than 70, especially young men that are in the range of 20, 30, 40, whose testosterone is down in the 2 to 3 or 400 level. This 76-and-a-half-year-old guy has a serum testosterone level of 752, up from last year's 659. That means over the course of 1 year on pure carnivore, my testosterone has gone up about 15%. That's nuts. I'm certainly not going to try to be insensitive, but for your information, men of my age, I have zero erectile dysfunction. And I don't know if I'm proud of that, but I'm certainly happy about it. My thyroid specific hormones are good, near the high end of the range. My creatinine, which was high last year and is an indicator of kidney problems, is now 1.0, smack in the middle of the normal range. My urea nitrogen, which is often and most times an indicator of kidney failure, is high. And that normally would concern me, and it concerned me a little last year, so I started doing a bunch of research on it. My urea nitrogen is 39, normal range is 7 to 20.6. But I found out over the past year that if other indications of kidney problems are not evident, then the most normal cause for an elevated urea nitrogen is a high protein diet. And a high protein diet can raise the BUN, blood urea nitrogen, up to 50 with no problem. And that's what happened to me. The fact that I'm eating a high protein, low carb diet means that the nitrogen levels in my blood are higher. And no cause for alarm, because I have the complete results of my urinalysis here. And they're perfect. I'm not dumping any nitrites, any proteins, glucose, ketones, bilirubin, or blood in my urine. Everything is perfect. So I also noticed, interestingly enough, that a year ago, when I went to the bathroom, I had some foam in my urine, which is a sign of kidney problems, and that has completely gone away. So I'm convinced that my kidneys are perfect. My elevated blood urea nitrogen is due to the fact that I eat just a lot of protein, and that tickles me to death. My sodium is at the low end of the range, and that really surprised me with the amount of salt I eat. But I think that's a good sign. My potassium is 4.1, right in the middle of the range. My chloride is 100, also in the middle of the range. And my C-reactive protein, which is an inflammation marker, on a scale of less than 0.5 is 0.2. Now last year it was 0.15, and that's an inflammation marker as well. But I had just recovered from what I thought was a strained ankle, which was a little inflamed and puffed up, and that would certainly be a cause for a slight increase in my CRP from last year, but certainly not enough to worry about it. All the other indications of systemic inflammation are not there, very low. And since I subscribe to the school that it is systemic inflammation that's more responsible for heart disease, I'm very happy about that. That covers the main things, because other than the urea nitrogen and of course my cholesterol, I have nothing indicated on any of these tests to show anything wrong with me. In fact, everything is an improvement over last year. But that's not what you're all worried about, and that's not what I've been worried about. And that is my cholesterol. And the fact that I'm smiling should indicate that this really doesn't bother me. My total cholesterol is 460. Last year it was like 410. My triglycerides are higher, a little higher than I'd like, at 109, but well within the normal range. And I'm happy about that, because last year they were 139. So the trend in my triglycerides is coming down. My HDL this year is 77, and it was 72 last year. So my HDL has increased and my triglycerides are coming down, which decreases that ratio, but certainly I'm happy about it. My LDL is 339. Last year it was around 300. That is the one number that, according to medical conventional wisdom, is out of range. Since my HDL is very good, and the LDL is what accounts for my high total cholesterol, again, according to the regular medical community, that would indicate that I should have had a heart attack years ago. Now, when I went on this carnivore diet, my cholesterol was around 120, my LDL, was around 120, 130, and it jumped sky high. But interestingly enough, I found out that if you're genetically predisposed to have high PCSK9 levels, on a low-carb diet with your triglycerides fairly low and your HDL high, your LDL will jump up like crazy. And that's been the main area of my study and research over the past year, to make sure that, contrary to my doctor's advice, I would not be better off eating sugar and taking statins, because I'm sure that would return all the health problems and weight that I lost eating this way, and I would feel like shit, and they would be convinced that I was going to live longer and I'd probably have a heart attack. I'm convinced of that. But again, you shouldn't be convinced of that until you learn the reasons why, and that's what I'm trying to teach you. But I'm not giving you medical advice. This is not medical advice for you. This is what I did, this is what I studied, this is what I learned, these are my numbers, and this is what's happening to me. The only way we'll know what it really means is come back in 20 years, see if old Mitch is still around, and whether the medical community has finally changed their mind due to all the new studies, especially the one that Nick Norwich just finished, where he ate a sleeve of Oreo cookies every day for 2 weeks and lowered his LDL by 275 points because he went from fat burning to sugar burning again. Those kind of things are what reinforce my belief that I'm doing the right thing and I don't need to worry about my cholesterol. I have faith in evolutionary biology. I have faith to think that the chemistry of my body and the programming instructions in my genes that regulate this chemistry would not take one thing like LDL cholesterol and raise it up to a deadly level when everything else shows me to be in perfect health? That doesn't make sense. If that made sense, I wouldn't be here today, because it would have killed one of my ancestors sometime over the last 10,000 generations. But I'm here. That means it didn't kill any of my ancestors. That's about it. That's about it. I'm pleased. I'm very pleased about this. I know that most of the people that follow me and everybody in general is interested in this kind of information, because this is a non-biased, non-corrupt, no agenda study of one person. If there was something in these numbers that had meaning to me, that I was doing the wrong thing, you would know about it immediately, because I've been fully transparent. And I would change tomorrow, because I'm not married to this. I don't make a fortune in the medical business or the drug business. I don't have a reputation as a professor who's been spouting something for years. I have no agenda other than to live the longest, healthiest life that I can, and I'm the one who will pay the price if I'm wrong. But every year as I do this, and every month that I get better and stronger and feel healthier, I become more and more convinced that we're on to something here. So do your research. Listen to everybody's opinion. Most importantly, decide if these opinions actually make common sense. And then you place your bet. Thanks for listening. I'm going to cook myself some breakfast now, my usual bacon and eggs. And I'll see you in the next one. So take the rest of the day off and eat meat.